Welcome, curious minds, to another journey of conspiracy tapes by Skoob. I'm your host, Ryan Martin, and today we're stepping through the ornate doors of Chateau de Ferrières into one of the most enigmatic and disturbing events of the 20th century. December 1972. The Rothschild Surrealist Ball. A night that continues to haunt conspiracy theorists, art historians, and anyone who dares to ask, what really happened when the world's elite gathered behind masks in a French castle? Picture this. You receive an invitation written entirely in reverse script. Mirror writing. You must hold it up to a looking glass just to read the words. Already, before you've even left your home, you're being told that tonight reality itself will be inverted. This was how the Rothschild family, one of the most powerful dynasties in human history, summoned their chosen guests to Chateau de Ferrières in December 1972. We're talking about a family whose wealth has been estimated at up to $15 trillion. When you possess that level of resources, normal rules don't apply. Normal parties don't suffice. The Rothschilds had built their empire through banking, financing wars and conflicts across centuries. By 1972, their influence stretched into governments, economies, and the very fabric of global power structures. So when Marie-Hélène de Rothschild decided to throw a surrealist ball, this wasn't going to be your typical high society gathering. The invitation itself was the first clue that something extraordinary was planned. Reverse writing, mirror script, has deep esoteric significance. In occult traditions, inversion represents the crossing of thresholds, the entry into hidden realms. Some conspiracy theorists point out that reversed text appears frequently in satanic rituals, though we must be careful not to jump to conclusions. What's undeniable is that from the very first moment, guests were being prepared for an experience that would challenge their perception of reality. The term surrealist ball carried weight beyond mere artistic reference. Surrealism, as an art movement, had always been about tearing down the boundaries between dreams and reality, between the conscious and unconscious mind. But by 1972, surrealism had evolved from rebellion into something else entirely, something that could be wielded, controlled, choreographed. December 1972. The chosen few, politicians, celebrities, financiers, artists, arrived at one of the most imposing castles in France. Chateau de Ferrières wasn't just any venue. This Rothschild-owned fortress had witnessed dark chapters of history, including Nazi occupation during World War II. The castle itself seemed to whisper of power, secrecy, and the weight of hidden histories. But what greeted guests as they crossed the threshold was unlike anything they could have anticipated. Figures in cat masks, not playful, cartoon-like faces, but masks that somehow managed to be both whimsical and deeply menacing. These masked figures didn't just stand there, they inhabited their roles completely. Some purred. Others sprawled on marble floors, imitating feline behavior with disturbing authenticity. This wasn't mere performance art. In ritual traditions, the adoption of animal personas represents the abandonment of human social constraints, a return to primal states of being. Were these guests witnessing a playful theatrical introduction, or were they observing something far more significant? The deliberate transformation of human identity. The journey deeper into the castle followed black ribbons that hung like serpents from the ceilings. These weren't decorations, they were guides, forcing guests to navigate by touch through dimly lit, maze-like corridors. Vision was obscured. Familiar social conventions evaporated. The atmosphere became increasingly unsettling as normal expectations of hospitality dissolved into something that felt less like celebration and more like dissent. Each room revealed new layers of disorientation. Some contained grotesque imagery. Others displayed surrealist art installations that seemed to pulse with hidden meaning. The deeper guests ventured, the more they felt they were stepping into an alternate reality where the rules of ordinary society no longer applied. This progression through stages, from normal arrival to masked anonymity to maze-like disorientation, mirrors patterns found in mystery schools and initiation rites throughout history. Whether conscious or unconscious, the evening's structure followed the ancient template of ritual transformation, where participants are systematically stripped of their previous identities and prepared to assume new, hidden roles. When guests finally reached the main hall, they encountered a scene that would haunt photographs and memories for decades to come. Here, the surrealist theme reached its full, disturbing expression through the costumes chosen by the evening's most prominent figures. Marie-Helene de Rothschild, the evening's hostess, greeted her guests wearing a mask of a stag's head adorned with tiers of diamonds that seemed to weep from its eyes. The stag, an ancient symbol of sacrifice, nobility, and the hunt. In mythological traditions, the stag often represents the willing sacrifice of the noble soul. But why would one of the world's most powerful women choose to embody this archetype of sacrifice? Her husband, Guy de Rothschild, wore what was described as a dead nature hat, a bizarre, haunting choice that seemed to celebrate mortality and decay. Together, the host and hostess presented themselves as figures from a fever dream, embodying symbols of death and sacrifice while welcoming guests into their domain. But perhaps the most striking costume belonged to Audrey Hepburn, the epitome of grace and elegance, who appeared with a golden bird cage placed atop her head, and, inside that cage, a live canary. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. A creature meant to soar freely, now imprisoned in gold. Was this a commentary on the elite themselves, their lives bounded by their wealth and influence? Or did it represent something darker, the idea that even beauty and freedom could be caged, controlled, possessed? Baron Alexis de Ride chose to wear a mask designed to resemble the Mona Lisa, but with multiple faces layered upon each other. His costume embodied illusion and multiplicity, suggesting that behind every public face lay another layer of deception, another hidden identity. These weren't random costume choices. Each mask, each symbol carried weight that extended far beyond artistic expression. The stag awaiting sacrifice, the caged bird, the multiplied face of deception. Together, they created a visual vocabulary of control, transformation, and hidden power. If the masks unsettled guests, the dinner that followed pushed the boundaries of comfort into territories that felt genuinely disturbing. This wasn't a meal, it was theater. Dark theater that transformed the act of dining into something approaching ritual participation. Traditional centerpieces were replaced with grotesque displays that seemed designed to provoke rather than please. Mannequins smeared with red paint that resembled blood stood sentinel over the dining tables. Dismembered baby dolls were cradled by antique suits of armor, creating tableaux that spoke of violence and protection in equal measure. Live turtles were locked in symbolic combat, their shells illuminated by flickering candlelight, as if the dinner itself was taking place in some ancient coliseum of the mind. The food served carried names that were equally unsettling. Baked goat cheese and sorrow and exquisite corpse roll appeared on menus alongside other cryptically titled dishes. The reference to exquisite corpse, a surrealist parlor game where artists would collaboratively create images without seeing what others had drawn, suggested a deliberate blending of creativity and mortality, playfulness and death. But here's what made the dinner truly remarkable: the silence. Multiple accounts describe how the ball began without music, without laughter, without the typical sounds of celebration. The only sounds were the echo of shoes on marble, the hiss of candles, the occasional nervous laugh that died quickly in the oppressive atmosphere. This wasn't decadence. It was choreography. Every element seemed designed to strip away the ordinary, to force participants into a shared experience of unease and complicity. To eat this meal, to raise these glasses, to laugh at these grotesque displays, was to participate in something that transcended normal social boundaries. What transforms a party into a ritual? What elevates a gathering from social event to something approaching sacrament? The answer lies in the deliberate use of symbols, the careful orchestration of experience, and the creation of shared complicity among participants. The 1972 Rothschild Ball demonstrated mastery of what we might call the grammar of symbol. Every element, from the reversed invitation to the animal masks to the grotesque banquet, served a purpose beyond mere entertainment. These were codes, binding the participants through shared experience of the extraordinary and the disturbing. Consider the progression. Guests arrived as individuals with public identities. They were stripped of those identities through masks. They were disoriented through maze-like passages. They were tested through participation in the grotesque dinner. By the end of the evening, they had become something else. Initiates in an experience that existed outside normal social reality. This pattern echoes ancient mystery schools, from the Eleusinian mysteries of Greece to the masked festivals of Venice, where identity dissolved into anonymity, and participants glimpsed hidden truths through carefully orchestrated ritual experiences. The Rothschild Ball gathered these echoes and dressed them in 20th century couture. The silence that characterized much of the evening serves as a crucial element here. In ritual traditions, silence isn't absence, it's control. It forces participants to confront their own thoughts, their own discomfort, their own complicity in the strange theater unfolding around them. Silence tells initiates, you are no longer in your own world. You are in ours. But why would the wealthiest family on earth feel the need to orchestrate such an elaborate ritual? Perhaps to remind themselves and their guests that true power operates not through contracts or legislation, but through deeper currents, through symbol, through myth, through the willing participation in mysteries that bind groups together in ways that transcend ordinary social bonds. Here's where our story takes a fascinating turn toward Hollywood and one of cinema's most enigmatic directors. 27 years after the Rothschild Ball, Stanley Kubrick released what would be his final film, Eyes Wide Shut. The parallels between Kubrick's fictional secret society gathering and the real events of 1972 are impossible to ignore. In Eyes Wide Shut, Tom Cruise's character stumbles upon an elite secret society engaging in ritualistic behavior, hidden behind masks in a secluded location. The atmosphere Kubrick created, the sense of menace beneath elegant surfaces, the use of masks to simultaneously conceal and reveal power structures, the ritualistic elements that suggest deeper conspiracies. All of this echoes the documented reality of the Rothschild Ball. The connection becomes even more intriguing when we consider that model and actress Marisa Berenson, who attended the 1972 Rothschild Ball, later worked with Kubrick on his film Barry Lyndon. Did she share details of that surreal evening with the director known for his obsession with hidden power structures and conspiracy theories? Kubrick never confirmed any direct inspiration from the Rothschild event, but the filmmaker was famous for embedding layers of meaning into his work, for exploring themes of power, control, and the hidden mechanisms that operate beneath the surface of civilized society. The idea that he might have drawn inspiration from one of the most documented examples of elite ritual behavior seems entirely consistent with his artistic preoccupations. What makes this connection particularly compelling is how both the real ball and Kubrick's fictional gathering suggest the same disturbing possibility, that those who hold power in our world operate according to rules and rituals that remain hidden from ordinary society. Both present the image of an elite class that binds itself together not through democratic processes or transparent institutions, but through shared participation in mysteries that exist outside normal social reality. Now we enter the realm where documented history meets speculation, where the strange facts of the Rothschild Ball fuel larger theories about how power really operates in our world. The event has become a cornerstone piece of evidence for those who believe in the existence of shadowy elite networks that manipulate global events from behind the scenes. The Rothschild family, with their centuries of financial influence and their role in funding wars and shaping economies, naturally attracts such theories. When you possess the kind of wealth that can influence governments and markets, when your family name appears in the financial structures behind major historical events, it's perhaps inevitable that people will wonder what other activities might be conducted away from public scrutiny. The choice of Château de Ferrières as the venue adds another layer to these speculations. This wasn't just any castle, it was a fortress with a dark history, including Nazi occupation during World War II. In the context of conspiracy theories, such locations aren't chosen accidentally. They represent the continuity of hidden power structures across different political systems and historical periods. The symbols displayed throughout the evening, the inverted text, the animal masks, the grotesque imagery, the references to sacrifice and death. All of these elements appear in various forms within conspiracy theories about elite secret societies. Whether these symbols were chosen for their artistic impact or their esoteric significance remains a matter of interpretation. But here's what we can say with certainty. The 1972 ball demonstrated that the world's most powerful people were willing to engage in behavior that was deliberately unsettling, deliberately symbolic, and deliberately hidden from broader public participation. Whether this behavior represented artistic expression, ritual bonding, or something more sinister depends on how you interpret the available evidence. To understand the true significance of the Surrealist Ball, we must consider it not as an isolated event, but as philosophy in action, the belief that reality itself can be shaped through ritual, that myths aren't dead relics, but living engines of power. The ball's genius lay in its systematic inversion of normal social reality. Guests who arrived as public figures with recognizable faces and identities were transformed into anonymous figures behind masks. Those accustomed to being served were forced to navigate dark corridors by touch. Elite individuals used to controlling their environment found themselves disoriented, tested, challenged by grotesque imagery and unsettling silence. This inversion serves a specific purpose in ritual traditions. It demonstrates that ordinary social rules don't apply, that participants have entered a space where different laws govern behavior and meaning. By submitting to this inversion, by wearing the masks and eating the symbolic meal, participants proved their loyalty not to society at large, but to the hidden circle, to the esoteric order that transcends normal social boundaries. The grotesque banquet sealed this process of transformation. Food was served, but it wasn't meant primarily to nourish. It was meant to test. Participants were forced to dine in complicity, to raise glasses while surrounded by symbols of death and sacrifice. To eat was to accept a covenant. To laugh was to confess belonging to something beyond ordinary social reality. This reveals the ball's deeper purpose. It wasn't a display of decadence, but a rehearsal of obedience. Each guest became both actor and initiate, tested by their willingness to endure the grotesque, to participate in the strange, to maintain their composure while reality itself seemed to bend around them. Every photograph that survived from the Rothschild Surrealist Ball feels like a riddle waiting to be solved. The golden cage balanced on Audrey Hepburn's head, the jeweled eyes of feline masks, the banquet of dolls smeared in red paint, arranged like casualties of some invisible war. These images continue to circulate, to provoke discussion, to fuel theories about what really transpired that December night. But perhaps the most significant legacy of the ball lies not in the photographs themselves, but in what they represent. The revelation that those who rule our world understand something about the nature of power that extends far beyond politics or economics. They understand the grammar of symbol. They know how to stage experiences that operate on psychological and mythological levels. The ball demonstrated that even in an age of technology and rational discourse, power still bows to older forces, to myth, to ritual, to the deliberate manipulation of symbol and meaning. The participants weren't just wearing costumes, they were embodying archetypes, activating patterns of meaning that connect to deep currents in human consciousness. This is perhaps why the event continues to fascinate and disturb us decades later. It suggests that the mechanisms of power in our world operate according to rules we're not taught in school, through processes that remain hidden from democratic scrutiny. It implies that while we focus on visible political and economic structures, the real decisions might be made by people who understand how to work with forces that exist beneath the surface of rational discourse. Whether you interpret this as evidence of sinister conspiracy or simply as the eccentric artistic expression of the ultra-wealthy, the ball's legacy remains the same. It demonstrated that reality itself can be manipulated, that perception can be controlled, and that those with sufficient resources can create experiences that exist outside the bounds of normal social reality. As we close the curtain on December 1972, one question refuses to fade. What really happened at the Rothschild Surrealist Ball? Was it simply an extravagant night of art and symbolism, or a carefully staged ritual meant to blur the line between performance and power? What makes the ball so unsettling isn't just the masks or the myths, but what it reveals about influence itself. Those at the top understand that reality can be shaped through symbols, through shared experiences, through stories powerful enough to linger for decades. And perhaps that's why this event still provokes fascination today. But this is only the surface. Behind the photographs, the guest list, and the spectacle lie details rarely discussed. Connections, interpretations, and unanswered questions that paint a far darker picture. If this story left you uneasy, curious, or questioning what power really looks like behind closed doors, the full deep dive awaits you. Download the Skoob app now to get access to the complete story, exclusive insights, and episodes you won't hear anywhere else. Until next time, keep questioning. Because reality is often stranger and far more hidden than it appears.